Ladies and gentlemen, with the release of CC12 base point, Arknights also released a new joint operation banner, featuring some interesting 6 and 5 stars for your team. And we will see each featured operator's abilities, and see whether you should pull this banner or not. A short reminder of what joint operation is. Basically you can only get the 6 and 5 stars featured in this banner. This banner could be a gold mine for those who don't have, or only have a few of the featured operators. But pretty much a skip if you have almost all of them. So with that said, let's see what each operator can do. Generally speaking, Thorns is the star of this banner, so let's start with him. Thorns is a multi-purpose Lord Guard. 4 DPS, lane holder, and solo lane with HP regeneration from his talent 2. With his skill 3 equipped, he does a good and consistent DPS to both ground and aerial units. He also has a first talent to deal arts DOT. Not only did it serve as an extra arts damage, but also useful in case a target is weak against DOT. Like enemies an invitation to wine, for example. His skill 2 is also useful in a certain situation that utilizes his talent 2 very well. Thorns is a good versatile unit in almost any kind of content. But it's worth noting that most of his best utility comes after Elite 2 promotion. So make sure you ready his E2 fund. Next one we will talk about Isley. Being a merchant specialist, Lee got a quicker redeploy time and a pretty cheap cost. He can both act as a heli drop unit or stationary. Though keep in mind his tray makes him consume 3 DP every 3 seconds. This makes your natural DP generation stagnate unless you got his module. His most interesting talent is his ultimate reverse card talent 2. Very handy against someone who inflicts frequent stun or frozen. Like this Crusher and the last night in IS 3 second ending. With skill 2 he can mark enemy to deal arts damage. That is further increased by how many times the target got hit before the explosion. And skill 3 is powerful in a lane with waves of low weight enemies. It also grants him a high dodge chance from attack outside of his range. Overall Lee is a solid unit to have that can be very useful in a certain niche. Next up, let's see Irene. Irene specializes in dealing big bursts of damage. And frankly the best unit to inflict levitation effect in global server. I recommend her if you need someone with a boss killing potential. Talent 1 is Irene's main source of damage against a bulky target. And can simply active to 100% with levitate effect in her skills. While talent 2 gives her an attack speed boost plus attack with module. And the effects will be doubled if there's an enemy present. Very useful in IS3 and upcoming SN run. For skills, all of her skills are offensive recovery, which could be troublesome to charge with little to no target to hit. Her talent 2 can help this process. But it's best you bring an SP support unit, like the Britain's greatest engineer.
Not that that's much of a problem. How about a little pay bump, eh?
Irene's skill 2 is the best choice if you need a constant levitate effect. But sadly it restricts the enemy weight that she can levitate for whatever reason. And if you want the maximum damage, go for her skill 3. But note that her target is random, so make sure the enemies are close. Last 6 star on the list is Dorothy. She's a trapper specialist who can set a trap on any unoccupied tile. A very awesome unit to stall enemies if you can play her right. With also a fine damage to offer. With the help of her talent 2 attack boost and her trap damage multiplier. Skill 1 traps give physical damage and reduced defense. But for all debuff purposes I think you'd better use someone else. Skill 2 is a great trap to bind enemies with some decent damage. While her skill 3 traps are the only one that deals arts damage. With a wider range and can create a chain effect to deal tons of damage to large groups of enemies, while also giving them a slow effect. Overall a solid control unit and a fun op to use. Her S3 is also a great tool to scout areas in reclamation algorithm. However, I doubt it will be relevant much longer. Now for the 5 stars, most are good in general, which is nice. is Tina is a great Dessel binder that can constantly slow enemies with her S1 or multiple enemies with skill 2. Thanks to her talent attack speed bonus and module, she can almost permanently slow an enemy with her normal attack alone. Quite worthy to invest if you need a slower/DPS unit. I can say Black Knight is currently the best tactician vanguard. And even when the 6-star. I'm sorry, I mean when another 6-star version appears. There's still something only she can do. Inflicting sleep and attacking sleeping enemies. Awesome to be used in a strategy that depends on sleep effect. And overall she's a good starting vanguard and even has use up until the stage ends. For Andrina, as a marksman she can hit pretty hard with her S2. And giving attack speed buff to all abyssal hunters. But there's a pretty bothersome part of her S2. That not allowing her to hit someone below 50% HP. And that attack speed buff for abyssal hunters usually doesn't play a big part. As Foreflent, a decent brawler guard to take down low to medium def enemies. And got a damage increase when attacking target blocked by other ops. It plays well with her archetype that tends to be squishy and with her skill 2. Sadly against high defense target is still a problem. So you better bring along some arts damager. Or if you have Indra, overall you should use her instead as a brawler. Moving on we have Quercus. Coming from an archetype so ineffective they need to rework it. And while the other two are still pretty mid, Quercus is a pretty awesome Abjura supporter that can become a medic alternative. Typically useful in IS mode if RNG decides not to give you any medic ticket. You can use S1 to turn her into a full-time healer. Or S2 for fast healing, and serve as an SP support. Lastly, we got Nightmare. Nightmare skill 2 has a strong true damage potential. But sadly her skill 2 movement reduction and auto activation hinder it. However, op with shift ability, typically a push stroker can help with the issue. So you have seen all of the featured operators. What do you think? First thing to note, whether or not you should pull this, is see how many ops you don't have. If you already have 2 6-stars and most of the 5 stars, better skip this unless you're a Las Vegas Strip regular. There's also the current standard banner and upcoming banner. If you don't have Mudrick and Mountain, I suggest you prioritize this over the joint operation. Though the 5 stars are mostly a no. Upcoming banners are also interesting. So decide which one you like to pull first. That should be all. Adios.